Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Far to the west in the shinobi world lies the land of wind. It's a harsh land defined by hot temperatures and vast deserts. Some of the people of wind live in a city called Sunagaker where they have acclimated to the environment. Sunagaker is one of the 5 major hidden villages and is home to shinobi, who make up a good portion of their population. The village is ruled by a figure called the Kazekage who is elected by the daimyo and the village council. However, Suna currently has no Kazekage since the previous one was killed by Orochimaru. Disguised as the Kazekage, Orochimaru lead the village to betray their ally nation, Konoha. However, they were defeated and now find theirself having no cage and under scrutiny for betraying their allies. In the heart of Suna lies the Kazekage Tower, where the cage conducts his daily business as well as where council meetings are held. Currently a council meeting is being held to discuss the aftermath of the failed invasion and what should be done in light of it. On this council sits the village elders, clan heads, and one of the top junin of the village. Baki was the top junin and he was currently trying to ignore the arguing between the members of the council while reading Temari's report on what happened in Gaara's fight during the Konoha invasion. This is why I hate council meetings, he thought. He flipped through pages of the report while listening to people twice his age bicker like children. Arriving at the page that told of how Gaara was defeated, he was intrigued when it said that he was defeated by a single genin. Continuing to read, he was surprised to see that it wasn't the prodigy Sasuke Uchiha who defeated him but a clanless orphan by the name of Naruto Uzumaki. Reading faster, his interest rose as he saw that Gaara was defeated while transformed as the Ikibi by Uzumaki summoning the boss of the Toad clan, Gamabunta. I was unaware that Master Jiraiya has taken new apprentice, thought Baki. The last one he had was over 15 years ago and became the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze the Yellow Flash, he thought, rubbing his chin. He flipped the report to the last page and froze seeing the picture attached. Naruto had bright blonde hair and was wearing an orange jumpsuit while showing a wide grin to the camera. He had an odd feature of whisker marks on his face, but that wasn't what gave Baki pause. There's no way, he couldn't be, he thought deep in contemplation. When he arrived at Naruto's information, which included his date of birth, he was convinced of his theory. Baki was trying to make sense of this information when a shout brought him out of his stupor. Looking around, he saw one of the council members standing up, clearly angry, and saying, "Temari is one of our most promising shinobi. We can't just give her away to Konoha and make ourselves even weaker. What do you propose we do to prove our sincerity to Konoha then?" Another member asked. "By giving one of our most valuable shinobi to them, we show how much we want to make amends while also gaining the alliance of the Uchiha clan through this union. But will they accept such a deal?" Lady Chiyo, a village elder, asked. "We also have to wonder if we even want to be associated with the Uchiha, seeing as how the last one is reported to be arrogant and doesn't have very strong ties toward his village. He could even desert his own village and then this whole alliance through marriage would fail." On that note, the council once again devolved into discussion and arguments. "It looks like they're trying to unite our villages through an arranged marriage," thought Baki. "Not a bad idea, but it sounds like they're having a hard time choosing who to use." The gears started to turn in Baki's head and he was struck by an idea. "It's a risk and it has a chance to backfire, but this has a big potential payoff for both of our villages," he thought. Clearing his throat, he got the attention of the table to present his idea. "I might have a solution to the problem that we have," Baki said. Seeing that he had the attention of everyone, he continued, "Marrying Temari into Konoha is a good idea, but I don't think we should use the Uchiha. Instead, we should use another shinobi by the name of Naruto Uzumaki." Seeing their confused looks, he started to pass around the file containing Naruto's information. After a few people read it, they started to talk and one member said, "Why should we marry Temari to a clanless orphan who seemingly has no talent?" Baki then replied, "While his file says he is nothing special, I have reason to believe Konoha might be hiding his true potential." Seeing their interested looks, he continued, In the first match of the Chunin exams, Naruto beat out a fan favorite in Neji Hyuga, who is said to be an unrivaled prodigy in the Hyuga clan. With the council members raising their eyebrows, Baki then said, Temari has listed in her report that after the invasion started, Uzumaki was the one who single-handedly defeated Gaara. The council members gasped in shock, and Baki continued, in the report Temari said that she saw Naruto make over 1,000 shadow clones to fight Gaara with. One of the elders stood up and exclaimed, preposterous, no one has that amount of chakra. Baki raised a hand and countered, I believe it. His file has shadow clones listed as one of his jutsu, and I personally saw him use several in his battle against the Hyuga. Also, Uzumaki is his last name, and they were famously known for having a ridiculous amount of chakra. Lady Chiyo spoke out. While it is true the Uzumakis had a lot of chakra, the clan is basically extinct, so he could still be viewed as clanless, and a union between him and Temari does not seem very enticing. Baki argued, yes, but he did more than just show shadow clones. Gaara ended up using the feigning sleep jutsu and transformed into the Ikibi. Following this, Naruto used a summoning jutsu and managed to summon the boss toad Gamabunta. There was silence for a while, and then an elder said, that means the Uzumaki has signed the toad summoning contract, which is currently with the toad sage Jiraiya of the Sannin. Baki confirmed, the latest report I have states that Jiraiya has taken Naruto out of Konoha on a mission, so it seems that Naruto is his new apprentice. This leads me to ask the council, who was Jiraiya's last apprentice? No one seemed to know until Lady Chiyo said, the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Everyone looked wide-eyed, and Baki nodded his head. Yes, Jiraiya appears to be training a second yellow flash, and seeing as how Naruto summoned the boss toad at his age, he is just as talented. Now, keeping in mind that Namikaze was Jiraiya's last apprentice, take a look at the picture of Naruto Uzumaki from this report. Baki handed the report to Lady Chiyo, who went pale as soon as she saw the picture. Passing it to the next council member, that exclaimed, he looks just like the yellow flash. The room broke out into shouts, each member trying to look at the picture and getting shocked when they saw it. Once everyone calmed down, Baki took the report back and spoke, I believe that Naruto Uzumaki is the son of Minato Namikaze and the sole heir of both the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans. Therefore, I propose that we choose Naruto to be the husband for Temari to secure our alliance with Konoha. Everyone thought for a moment until a council member asked, I think this is a good idea, but will they accept the arrangement? If they're hiding his true identity, would they even want to marry him to someone from another village that might split his loyalties? Baki nodded and replied, I'm not completely sure, but I believe they might take the deal. For one, we are offering our best kunoichi in Temari, who is also the daughter of a Kage. Also, this will benefit them, as any offspring made from the children of two Kages are almost guaranteed to be exceptional. Finally, it is in Konoha's best interest to have an alliance with us, as if Suna falls, then Konoha could be surrounded on two sides by Iwa. The council started looking around and nodding to each other in approval. Then Lady Chiyo spoke up and asked, okay, this sounds like a good plan, but what should we ask for in return, since it feels like Konoha is gaining all the power from this? Are we also sure that the points against the Uchiha don't apply to Uzumaki as well? Council members started to murmur to each other until Baki answered, we can add a clause to the marriage proposal saying that one of their children must be married back into Suna, and we would be able to start another clan that way. We also need to be wary of adding too many stipulations in our favor, since we lost the invasion and are paying reparations. We don't want to give Konoha a reason to reject our proposal and retaliate against us. Baki waited until everyone was finished discussing and then continued, regarding the Uchiha, it was stated that he does not have great ties with his village. Naruto Uzumaki is the opposite of him. He fought against the Ikibi by himself to protect his village and the people in it. After the invasion, Gaara has appeared to have calmed down considerably and does not have near the amount of bloodlust he did before. I asked Temari and Kankuro about this, and they said that when Uzumaki beat him, he said that he fights for his precious people instead of himself. Baki continued, This changed Gaara's way of thinking and he seems to want to protect his people instead. Everyone in the chamber was surprised that Gaara changed his ways and that Naruto was the one responsible for it. So you see that since Naruto fights for the people close to him that he would protect Suna if his wife was from here and has close ties to the village. Also with a second yellow flash protecting us, our enemies would think twice about attacking, especially Iwa who is our biggest threat and fears the yellow flash. Baki finished. The council started to think and whisper to each other, and when they finished Lady Chio said, "I think we are all in agreement and should vote for this plan of action." Baki nodded and then started the voting process. Once it was finished, the votes counted out to a unanimous yes. Baki stood up and then stated, "It's settled. With Konoha's approval, Temari Subaku will move to Konoha and marry Naruto Uzumaki. To the east of the land of wind, past the land of rivers, lies the land of fire. A lush, vibrant land that has trees taking up a majority of the land. In the land of fire lies the hidden village of Konohagakure. Just like Sunagakure, this village is full of shinobi who live under the rule of the Hokage. However, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, has just died in a confrontation with his former student Orochimaru. The third Hokage had been ruling for almost 13 years since his successor, Minato Namikaze the fourth Hokage, died fighting the Kyuubi. Now Konoha is currently leaderless until Jiraiya returns from his trip to retrieve Tsunade Senju, the slug Sannin, who is supposed to take over as the fifth Hokage. Even so, a meeting has been called in the Hokage Tower to discuss a certain message that recently arrived from Sunagakure. In the halls of the tower you could hear the tapping of a cane as an old man walked towards where the meeting was being held. He had bandages wrapped around his head and part of his body even covering one of his eyes. His name was Danzo Shimura and he was one of the oldest living shinobi in the Konoha, being the teammate of the late third Hokage. With a frown on his face he pushed open the door to the meeting room and stepped inside. Looking around he saw that the entire shinobi council had already arrived, but the civilian council side was completely empty. Raising an eyebrow but staying silent, he moved to his seat and took his place at the table. He then looked to where the Hokage would normally sit and found it empty, but the Hokage's two advisors, Homura and Kaharu, were seated to the sides of the Hokage spot. With Danzo taking his seat, the whispers in the room quieted down and Homura nodded and stood up. "Seeing as how everyone is present, we shall now begin this meeting," he stated. "Normally we would put off possible meetings until we have the Hokage available, but we received an urgent piece of news to discuss and Lady Tsunade won't be here for a few more days according to the latest correspondence from Lord Jiraiya." Everybody nodded and he continued, "I will let Shikaku inform you of the message we received from Suna and what this means for us." Homura then sat down and Shikaku, head of the Nara clan and Junin commander, gave a sigh muttering something, but then stood up to speak. "We recently received a message from Suna to discuss the conditions of their surrender. They have an interesting proposal to pay reparations and I can see the value in it, but we need to discuss the terms here among ourselves first." He was about to continue until Sume, head of the Inuzuka clan, interrupted. "Wait. If we're gonna be discussing the terms of surrender, shouldn't the civilian council be here as well? Not that I'm complaining they're missing," she added with a chuckle. Shikaku nodded and added, "Yes, while they would normally be here, there are some village secrets that are bound to come up in this meeting and I would like to keep them as contained as possible for now. We will still have to inform them of the decisions chosen, but we can use other reasoning to explain our choices instead of spilling the secrets they don't know." Some of council members looked surprised at that, since there was only a handful of secrets that the Shinobi Council knew but the Civilian Council didn't. They quickly composed themselves and Shikaku took that as his sign to continue. Beginning with the standard items, they have promised to pay a certain amount of wealth, jutsu scrolls, as well as having open trade and a non-aggression pact with us. It's not an absurd amount of tribute, but it is reasonable for the damages we sustained in the attack. Where it gets interesting is the main item on the list they are offering us. Pausing to see he had everyone's attention, he said, "They are offering us a marriage contract with Temari Subaku as the bride. Everyone but Danzo looked shocked and started to whisper to each other. When everyone calmed down, Danzo spoke up. If they are offering their best young kunoichi who is a daughter of a kage, then I assume they already have a groom picked out that they want for this union. Shikaku sighed and replied, it's troublesome, but yes, they have picked out a shinobi and they want Naruto Uzumaki. When he said this, everyone was stunned into silence for a moment until Choza, head of the Akamichi clan, spoke up. Why would they want him and not someone like Sasuke Uchiha or any other clan member? The council members started thinking until Shikaku answered for them. I'm not 100% sure, but I have a pretty good idea about why they chose Naruto. First, they may have tried not to be too greedy and asked for someone like the Uchiha, since we would not let the Uchiha clan have strong ties to another village and give them the possibility of the Sharingan, like one of the clauses in this contract that I will go over later. The council members discussed this and agreed that they wanted to keep the Sharingan to their village as much as possible. Seeing that he had everyone's attention again, he said, this brings me to the second point and the main reason they may have picked Naruto. I believe they may have uncovered Naruto's true lineage, or at least part of it. At those words, the council became laser-focused and Shibi, head of the Aburame clan, asked, what exactly do you believe Suna knows about Naruto? Shikaku started scratching his chin and sighed before answering, I am almost completely sure they know he is truly an Uzumaki instead of just being named after them. He is well known for using shadow clones, and as was reported, he used over 1,000 in his battle against Gaara. This has surely been told to the council of Suna, since all three of the Kazekage's children survived the battle and most likely reported the results. No one spoke until Hiyashi, head of the Hyuga clan, replied, you think they know more than just his Uzumaki lineage, don't you? Shikaku nodded and said, yes. If they only knew about him being an Uzumaki, then it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Suna would have either asked for someone else like Sasuke Uchiha, or might have had Naruto just be an option and have other shinobi we could choose to be a groom. Since they asked specifically for Naruto and provided no other names as options, I believe that they know, or at least strongly suspect, who Naruto's father is. Everyone's face darkened and Inoichi, head of the Yamanaka clan, spoke up. So you think they know that Minato is his father? Do they suspect he has the Kyuubi sealed in him as well? Shikaku shook his head and said, I'm not sure, but I don't think it would matter to them either way. Having the son of the Yellow Flash as a possible ally would trump all other concerns, especially considering how close Iwa is located to Suna and the animosity between the two countries. Shibi then asked, so assuming that the reason they want Uzumaki for the marriage is because of his lineage, what clauses have they put in the contract for their benefit? They would want to get something else out of this union, or else they wouldn't take such a big gamble on an unconfirmed hunch. Shikaku answered his question, the only major clause is that they want one of the children from this union to be married back into Suna. I'm sure they would want the child so they can use them to start a clan of their own. Even if they think they could be wrong about Naruto's father, then Suna would still gain a strong bloodline in the form of the child of an Uzumaki and their own Kage's daughter. Seeing that everyone understood the contract and reasoning, he asked, so now that we know what Suna is asking for and offering us, we must discuss what to do with these terms and whether we accept them. While the discussion was ongoing, Danzo had thoughts going through his head of how he could take advantage of the situation. I failed to get the Kyuubi Jinchuriki for myself to train as a weapon because of Hiruzen's interference. However, this presents a new opportunity to obtain the offspring of 2 Kage for Konoha's benefit, not to mention the other boons we gain for having such a strong kunoichi in our ranks. I just have to find a way to keep the Jinchuriki loyal to our village instead of having too many priorities to Suna. Pondering this, Danzo began to craft an idea of how he could keep most of the power for Konoha. Taking control of the conversation, Danzo spoke up, we should accept. Seeing that the council stopped talking and listening, he continued, Temari is arguably Suna's most promising shinobi. She is reported to have the strongest wind affinity Suna has seen in many years and has shown to be a very dedicated kunoichi. Then there is also the fact that she is the daughter of the last Kazekage, which makes her practically royalty, and could also have the potential to pass on the magnet release bloodline. Everybody started nodding their heads agreeing with his points, and Danzo said, as for the issue of relinquishing a powerful child from the union to Suna, it is a negligible point. For starters, they lose a powerful asset in Temari which hurts them in both strength and politics. It will also take many years before the child can be sent to Suna and become part of their shinobi force, not to mention the amount of time it will take for a clan to be built up. Looking around to make sure everyone is following, he continued, meanwhile we only gain from this deal. To start, we get a powerful kunoichi right away who would make a good addition to our forces. We also get the prestige of having the princess of Suna in our village, as well as the revivals of both the Namikaze clan and Uzumaki clan. Finally, we can have the clans built up much faster than Suna, since our clans would have a generational head start and have the possibility of more than one child to grow them with. With these points made, the table fell into discussion again, with several members agreeing with what was said. Finally, Choza asked, I see the appeal, but it could also take several years to have any meaningful payoff. Do we still think it's worth it if this takes several generations for us to see results? Danzo tapped his cane and replied, I do believe the results are also worth waiting for. We could also have the process speed up by adding a clause that states Temari must be with child by a certain age. Since she is older than Uzumaki, maybe by the time he is 18 she would be required to be pregnant. This would mean that it would only be about 5 years before they could start rebuilding the clan. With the possibility of multiple children, the effect could increase greatly before too many generations. Before the room could once again fall into discussion and whispers, Shikaku interrupted saying, I noticed you said clan instead of clans. I assume that you didn't just misspeak and you have a reason for it. Danzo remained stoic and nodded saying, yes, it is true that it would take a while to rebuild a clan, not to mention two like we are suggesting for Naruto Uzumaki. That is why I have a proposal which could alleviate this problem. The solution is to have Naruto Uzumaki take a second wife, one from our own village. This would let him build both clans at once, while having a wife from Konoha would strengthen his ties here so he is not as prone to have more allegiances to Suna. Silence permeated the table until Sum growled out, I don't like it. Isn't there a way to revive both clans without Naruto needing to take a second bride? Also, how are we supposed to explain to people that he needs to take a second bride without exposing people to the truth of Naruto's lineage too early? Ignoring her temper, Danzo answered, he could revive both clans with one wife, but it would take considerably longer and have a much weaker potential. It also places a much larger strain on Temari to have enough children to populate both clans and have an offspring to marry back into Suna. Sum begrudgingly simmered down and Shikaku took over saying, with the issue of Naruto's lineage being revealed too soon, we have options there as well. We don't have to reveal the betrothal contracts to the public until later, so we could put off the knowledge of Naruto's parents until he is strong enough to protect himself. Master Jiraiya has told me that he wishes to take Naruto on a journey for a few years after Tsunade is settled in a little while as Hokage. This would give Naruto several years training under a Sannin, and he should become strong enough to protect himself and his family when we announce his lineage and betrothal contracts around his 16th birthday. Tapping his fingers on the desk, Inoichi spoke up, if we're delaying revealing the marriages, should we even bother with choosing a second bride right now? Shikaku shook his head and said, no, we should go ahead and choose now. Not only will we need to inform Suna of our choices for this alliance to work, we also need to know because Temari will be moving here upon completion of the deal and we don't need her to have a head start on securing Naruto's allegiance over our choice of bride. This will also give Naruto and his brides time to get to know each other and hopefully make the marriage process run smoother when it becomes time. Adjusting his glasses, Homura asked, so we are informing Naruto and his other bride of the situation. Would this be in our best interests? Shikaku answered him, yes, we should inform them of what will be happening. Temari will already know and she shouldn't have to keep the secret from the other two. Also, this will give them time to learn to get along and also plan out their future together before they are required to be married. Danzo waited a moment before speaking up. Seeing as there are no objections, we now must choose who will be the bride from Konoha. It is best to choose a girl from a clan instead of a civilian since they will be an integral part in founding one of the clans. Therefore, they need to not only know the inner workings of clan politics but also potential sway in political circles. Seeing no one step forward, Sum replied, I don't think it can be from the Inuzuka clan because there is too big of an age gap between Naruto and my daughter Hana. Agreeing with her, Shikaku turned to Inoichi and asked, what about Ino? She's the same age as Naruto and could possibly work. Inoichi sighed and shook his head, sorry, I don't think that will work. To start with, she really doesn't like Naruto. I often hear her say how annoying and loud she thinks he is. His face then turned into a grimace before continuing, she's also has a crush on Sasuke Uchiha and is a huge fangirl of his. That could not only cause trouble with Naruto but possibly with Temari too, since she might take offense to a fangirl sharing her husband. While this was happening, Hiyashi was deep in thought. This could possibly be the answer I've been hoping for. If I marry off Hinata and make Hanabi the clan heiress, then they will both be safe from the seal. It would also play into Hinata's strengths since she might not be well suited to lead a clan. She is adept at clan politics and could play a supporting role very well. He then got a smirk on his face thinking, it would also give the Hyuga clan a powerful new ally that has close ties to us. His smirk turned into a soft smile and thought, this would also make Hinata very happy and fulfill her greatest wish even if she does have to share. Coming out of his stupor, he noticed that everyone had stopped talking and was looking at him in slight confusion. He perked up and straightened his back. Raising his eyebrow, he questioned them, yes. Shikaku mumbled, troublesome, then spoke up, every other member has given reasoning on why they don't have an available member eligible to be a bride. As I recall, you have a daughter the same age as Naruto, so what do you have to say for this arrangement? Hiyashi cleared his throat and replied, yes, my eldest daughter, Hinata, is from the same age group as Uzumaki. Considering this, I believe that she would be the best choice for this arrangement. Seeing that most of the council was slightly shocked, he would agree. He continued, as you may know, I have another younger daughter, Hanabi, who could take the place of Hinata as heiress. She has a more aggressive personality than Hinata and would make a better choice as a future clan head. However, Hinata is well versed in clan politics, even more than Hanabi, and would be a good choice to assist in starting a clan. She is also much more gentle and soft-spoken, which can help to support Naruto and Temari in the future, both of whom have been seen to be loud and boisterous. The council started talking amongst each other and discussing the advantages of this before agreeing that this would be the best choice. Shikaku spoke up, we believe Hinata would make for the most optimal pairing. Are you certain this is what you wish to do, Hiyashi? Hiyashi nodded and said, yes, I think this is the best course of action and approved the choice. He brought his hands together before continuing, I will have to speak to the Hyuga Council and obtain their approval, but I don't anticipate them denying it when I tell them of Naruto's true lineage and the plans we laid out here today. With Hiyashi's words, the table fell silent once again. Seeing that no one else had anything to bring up, Kaharu stood up and spoke, if that is everything, then we will write up the contract and prepare to send it to Suna as soon as Hiyashi gets approval from the Hyugas and Lady Tsunade arrives to be informed of our decision. Upon everyone nodding, Kaharu finished, then this council meeting is finished. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the land of fire, a group was traveling on the road back to Konoha. At the head of the group is an excitable blonde kid wearing a bright orange jumpsuit with a wide grin on his face. He would run ahead and then walk back, trying to get the other members of the group to go faster. Come on, he whined. We need to get back so Ba-chan can heal my friends. Trying to tug on his master Jiraiya's sleeve, his idea was shut down by a fist on his head, courtesy of Tsunade. Calm down, brat. We'll get there in just a few days. Going at this pace, she exclaimed. We don't want to waste any energy by running when there's always a possibility of an enemy ambush. She then got a sour look on her face and shouted, "And stop calling me Ba-chan." Naruto grumbled and said, "I only call you that because you hide your true age with a genjutsu." Tsunade developed a tick mark at this and was about to shout again when Jiraiya interjected, "Naruto, you shouldn't criticize a woman's looks or her age. They are sensitive to it and it could lead to a lot of pain for you if you say the wrong thing." He then got a perverted look on his face and added, "If you want to know all the right things to say to a woman, then you should read my book series Ika Ika." Chiming in, Shizune, apprentice of Tsunade, spoke up, "Master Jiraiya, you shouldn't be corrupting his mind with the content in your books." The pet pig she was holding, Tauntaun, squeaked out, "Oink, oink." In agreement. "Yeah, pervy sage," Naruto shouted. "I don't want to read that smutty trash you write." Feeling insulted but not backing down, Jiraiya countered, "It's not smut, it's adult literature that has romance and passion with a side of spicy scenes." He calmed back down and continued, "It's fine though, you'll understand when you're older. Plus I have a wide female viewer base that is only growing larger. Who knows, maybe your future wife is one of my readers." He exclaimed with a laugh. Looking skeptical, Naruto replied, "I doubt it. Sakura-chan hates those books and always complains when she sees Kakashi-sensei pull it out, so I doubt she wants to read it." Sighing but not wanting to fight Naruto over the issue of his misguided affections for Sakura again, Jiraiya merely stated, "We'll see." Trying to steer the conversation in another direction, Shizune spoke up, "So Naruto, what are you planning on working on now that we saw you were able to do the Rasengan?" Naruto started scratching the back of his head and sheepishly replied, I'm not really sure." Turning to Jiraiya, he asked, "Pervy sage, what should I be working on?" With a tick mark he shouted, "Stop calling me that." Calming down, he answered, "I have an idea but it will have to wait until we get back to the village. I plan on telling Kakashi and he can help you with it." Piping up before Naruto had a chance to complain about not learning it now, Tsunade said, "I know what you can work on in the meantime." Seeing Naruto turn to her with an expectant look, she continued, "You should work on being able to make your Rasengan one-handed and without the use of a shadow clone." Naruto didn't look too excited and asked, "Why should I bother to do that when it works just fine like it is now?" Feeling miffed but deciding to answer, she said, "Because it will help you in battle obviously. Not only will it save you chakra but it will also save time that you would spend making a shadow clone. Plus there is always the chance you won't have both hands to make a shadow clone anytime you need it." Thinking it over, Naruto nodded and shouted, "You got it, Ba-chan. Thank you, I'll get started right away." He started to run ahead of the group again, but before he got too far, Tsunade called out, "Also try to decrease the time it takes to make a Rasengan. In battle every second matters. Don't overwork yourself either because I don't want to have to heal you from chakra exhaustion." Turning around, Naruto saluted and then started to practice his jutsu. Tsunade sighed and said, "He gives me such a headache. I hope he doesn't give me as much trouble when we get back to the village." Jiraiya laughed but said nothing. Meanwhile, Shizune gave her an uneasy smile. Tsunade sighed and shook her head saying, "I have a feeling I'm going to regret taking the Hokage hat." Kotetsu and Izumo were spending their day like any other day, guarding the gates of Konoha. Nicknamed the Eternal Chunins, they could be seen gatekeeping Konoha almost every day. They almost never took any other missions because they enjoyed the safety and peacefulness of their current job, despite the boredom. Normally they didn't have much to do besides check people in and out of the village, but today they would get an interesting group arriving in the village. Trying to stay awake, Kotetsu was looking around for anything of note. Peering past the entrance of the village, he saw a group of travelers heading towards them. Shaking awake Izumo, who had fallen asleep a while ago, he straightened up and tried to see if he could make out who was in the group. It wasn't until they got a little closer and he could make out some bright orange that he broke out into a little smile. With the village gates in sight, the orange figure started running until it arrived in front of the check-in desk. Grinning and waving his hands, Naruto greeted, "Hey guys, I'm back. Did you miss me?" Chuckling, Katetsu answered, "Well, it's certainly been quieter without you here." Looking at his paperwork, he asked, "So you and Master Jiraiya are back from your mission?" By this time, Jiraiya had caught up with Naruto and confirmed, "Yes, me and the kid are back from a successful mission retrieving Princess Tsunade and her apprentice Shizune." With this, Katetsu and Izumo noticed the two people in the back of the group. Shocked, Izumo stuttered out, Lady Tsunade. It's been over a decade since you've been in the village." Grimacing, Tsunade nodded and replied, "Yes, I'm back against my better judgment and here to stay for the foreseeable future." Katetsu took out papers and said, "Well, just sign these papers so we can get you checked into the village." Jiraiya and Tsunade started to sign them in while Naruto stood bouncing in place waiting for them to finish. As soon as they finished, Naruto started tugging on Tsunade's sleeve saying, "Come on, Ba-chan. We have to go to the hospital now so you can heal my friends." Tsunade bonked him on the head and exclaimed, "Stop rushing me, brat. We can walk over there at a pace normal people do." Naruto nodded rapidly and turned to Jiraiya looking expectant. Jiraiya noticed and told him, "Go ahead, kid, I'll catch up later." Turning around and running off, he shouted, "I have some research to catch up on." Naruto scowled and mumbled under his breath, "Yeah, right, you just want to peek on women." Turning around, he called out to Tsunade and Shizune, "Follow me, I'll take you to the hospital." He then started to run off in another direction. Shaking their heads, they started to follow after him, telling him to slow down. Jiraiya slipped in through the window of the Hokage tower into the Hokage's office. Contrary to what Naruto and the others thought of him, he actually did have work to do. Walking to the pictures of the previous Hokages, he stopped at the third Hokage's picture. Looking downcast, he spoke, "It's hard to believe you're really gone, old man." Shifting his gaze to the picture of the fourth Hokage, he said, "You would be so proud of your son if you could see him. He doesn't have your innate talent, but he has more than enough guts and potential to make up for it." With a small smile, he finished, "I think he might even be able to surpass all of us in time." While he was lost in thought, the door opened behind him. Homura walked in and was surprised to see Jiraiya in the office. Composing himself, he spoke, "Master Jiraiya, I didn't know you were back." Turning around, Jiraiya nodded and answered, "Yes, we just arrived back in the village." Homura adjusted his glasses and asked, "Since you've returned, does that mean you were successful? Is Lady Tsunade here with you?" Jiraiya nodded and replied, "Yes, me and Naruto were able to convince her to return and become Hokage. She is with Naruto at the hospital right now, fulfilling a promise to heal his friends." Homura remained stoic but told him, "Very well, but we need her to return here as soon as she's done. Not only do we have to induct her in her new role, but we also have an urgent document she needs to look over and approve." Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and asked, "What document are you talking about?" Walking over to the desk and shuffling through some papers, Homura answered, "Suna recently sent over a message to discuss the terms of surrender." Finding the papers he was looking for, he handed them to Jiraiya and continued, "We found the terms acceptable with a few additions of our own, and we plan on implementing them as soon as Tsunade approves and sends it to Suna." Jiraiya started looking through the documents and his expression became more serious as he read further. When he finished, he brought his hand to his chin and thought for several minutes. Finally, he turned to Homura and asked, "This already has the full approval of the council?" Homura nodded and said, "Yes, everyone approved it after a lengthy discussion and the addition of the marriage contract with the Hyuga. If need be, we can explain to you and Tsunade the reasons that we thought this was the best course of action." Sighing, Jiraiya shook his head and replied, "No, that won't be necessary. I can see the clear benefits both Suna and Konoha get from this deal. I just wish I was able to give the kid a choice for his future." Showing slight empathy, Homura said, "I understand, but this is the best thing we can do for both our countries. He might be restricted in his love life, but this could be a good opportunity for him as well. Not only will he be able to get more help in his shinobi career through this, but he will also gain political prestige, which could bring his standing with the village up considerably. Smiling slightly, he added, also, even though it is an arranged marriage, it will give him something he always wanted, a family. Chuckling, Jiraiya started smiling and answered, that's true. It will make the kid happy to be able to come home to someone once he gets over the initial shock. Having such a prestigious union will also help him in his goal to become Hokage. His grin then grew perverted before speaking, not to mention having two beautiful girls for himself, princesses no less. It makes me jealous of his luck. Pinching the bride of his nose, Homura sighed out, I had almost forgotten how perverted your character was. I'm surprised you didn't skip coming here to peep on the bathhouses instead. If it was possible. Jiraiya's grin grew wider before he replied, who's to say I didn't do both? Bringing his arms up for a hand sign, he spoke, after all, shadow clones are Lord Second's best invention. Dispelling his clone, he received the memories of a bathhouse and flew back with blood shooting out his nose. At the Konoha hospital, there was a sense of peace and calm. Most of the critical injuries from the Konoha invasion had been taken care of, and there were not very many new admissions due to the decrease of missions lately for village security. This atmosphere was quickly broken, however, when the front doors opened and Naruto ran through the door to the reception desk and started yelling, what rooms are Sasuke, Rock Lee and Kakashi Sensei in? I've got Tsunade Ba-chan here and she needs to start healing them. The receptionist started to glare at Naruto and was about to tell him off when a fist collided with the top of his head. In pain, he looked and saw Tsunade glaring at him saying, knock it off and be quiet, brat. This is a hospital and you shouldn't be disturbing them. She then turned to the receptionist and said, he is right though that I'm here to provide healing for patients. So please give us the room numbers he asked for. Shaking away her stupor at seeing Tsunade Senju in their hospital, she stammered out, right away ma'am. Shuffling through some papers, she found what she was looking for and replied, all three patients are on the second floor and here are their room numbers. Once Tsunade memorized them, she nodded and said, thank you. We'll be on our way then. Grabbing Naruto by his jacket, she started to haul him up the stairs with Shizune following close behind. Once they arrived outside of Sasuke Uchiha's room, Naruto broke free and opened the door. When he entered, his smile fell at seeing Sasuke laying in his bed asleep, seemingly trapped in a nightmare. Walking forward to his bedside, she commented, so this is the last Uchiha. Turning to Naruto, she asked, you said his brother put some kind of genjutsu over him? Somberly, Naruto nodded, yeah, Itachi did something with his Sharingan and then Sasuke collapsed. Itachi also beat him up pretty bad before he put him in the genjutsu. Trying to look hopeful, Naruto asked, you can fix him, right? Tsunade sighed and said, I can fix his physical injuries just fine. Honestly, they should have already been fixed by the hospital. Looking down and grumbling, she muttered, looks like the medical department has let themselves go since I've been gone. Straightening up, she turned to Shizune and bellowed out, Shizune. When we're done here and I've settled in as Hokage, I'm going to reform the hospital and you're going to help me. Trembling a little bit, Shizune stuttered, why yes ma'am. Turning back to Naruto, Tsunade continued, as for the mental damage he sustained in the attack, that's much more complicated. Grimacing, she said, I can wake him up but I can't do anything for what he's already gone through and seen in the genjutsu. Looking downcast, Naruto nodded and replied, okay, just please do what you can, Ba-chan. Tsunade nodded and started using her mystical palm technique over Sasuke's head. After a few minutes, Sasuke opened his eyes and started to sit up in his bed. Cheering, Naruto exclaimed, you did it, Ba-chan. He's awake. Looking at Sasuke, he continued, I got Ba-chan back to the village to help heal you and the others. Seeing Sasuke not react, Naruto's smile dropped and he asked, Sasuke, wah? Before he could finish, the door to the room opened and everyone but Sasuke turned to see someone with a head of pink hair at the entrance. Naruto brightened and said, Sakura-chan. Look, Sasuke's woken up with the help. Oh. Ignoring Naruto, Sakura ran to Sasuke and threw her arms around him crying, Sasuke-kun. I was so worried about you. I'm so glad you're awake. Feeling sad and dejected but throwing on a fake smile anyway, Naruto exited the room quietly. From her place at the bedside, Tsunade frowned when she saw it but didn't say anything. She instead continued to heal Sasuke's physical injuries and talk about what he would need to do to recover. Outside of the room, Naruto was sitting in a chair with his head down. He had his head down in quiet contemplation. Even when I brought a healer just for Sasuke, Sakura-chan never paid me any attention. Scoffing lightly, he thought, now I'm not sure if she'll ever be able to see me over her precious Sasuke. Before he could fall too far in his self-deprecation, a soft voice brought him out of his thoughts. NN Naruto-kun. Looking up, he saw Hinata, heiress of the Hyuga clan, standing a few feet away from him in her trademark beige jacket. Jumping up a little, he put on his fake smile and said, Hi Hinata. What are you doing here? Looking slightly skeptical at his grin but not commenting on it, she answered, I'm here to bring FF flowers to my friends in the hospital. I've already taken some to Lee and K Kakashi-sensei. She felt slightly ashamed at stuttering so much but tried not to let it show. Naruto ignored it however and just replied, That's awesome Hinata. You always are so nice to everyone. Looking away a little, he mumbled, even to someone like Sasuke who won't appreciate it. Hearing him but decided not to bring it up, Hinata asked, So I heard you went on mission. Since why you're back, does that mean it was successful? Naruto nodded and grinned saying, Yeah, me and Pervy Sage just got back. You should have seen me. I beat all kinds of bad guys and even learned a new jutsu. Practically bouncing in place, he continued, Maybe sometime I can show it to you. Blushing at the thought of spending more time together, she poked her fingers together and squeaked out, I'd like that. Before anything else could be said, Naruto felt a hand grab the top of his head and a voice admonish him, You shouldn't exaggerate so much, brat. Turning around, he saw that Tsunade and Shizune had come out of the room while they were busy talking. Tsunade glanced at the new arrival before addressing Naruto, Well, shouldn't you introduce me to your little friend here? Naruto nodded and replied, Ba-chan, this is my friend Hinata Hyuga. She's super strong and has these awesome eye powers that let her see through stuff. Turning towards Hinata, who was blushing and being called super strong and his friend by Naruto, he continued, Hinata, this is Ba-chan, she's like some kind of old, drunk, gambling, doctor lady. As soon as those words left his mouth, he was hit hard on the head and sent crashing to the floor. Tsunade huffed before exclaiming, How many times do I have to hit you before you learn to think before you speak? Feeling slight sad that Naruto was hurt but understanding he brought it on himself, Hinata gathered her courage and asked, Naruto, why are you calling her Ba-chan? She can't be old enough to be your grandmother. Recovering, Naruto sprung back up before putting his hand up and whispering to Hinata, She might look young but she's really over 50. Her name is Tsunade and she uses a genjutsu to hide her real age. Turning red at the close proximity but focusing on what he said, she stammered, Tsunade. The slug Sanin. She bowed before saying, it's nice to meet you, Lady Tsunade. With a slight grin on her face, Tsunade replied, It's nice to meet you too, Hinata. Turning to Naruto with a stern look on her face and puffed out cheeks, Hinata admonished him, You shouldn't make fun of a lady's age and should show Lady Tsunade the respect she deserves. Shocked that she spoke back to him like that and didn't even stutter, Naruto answered, Oh okay, I'll apologize. Bowing to Tsunade, he said, I'm sorry for my careless words, Lady Tsunade. Seeing Naruto apologize to her like that made Tsunade's mouth gape slightly. She recovered and then chuckled before saying, I like this girl. If she can make you behave like this, then I can see her potential. Just now realizing what she had done, Hinata buried her face into her jacket with an eep, trying not to faint. Cute. Tsunade thought. Glancing back at Shizune to see that she was having similar thoughts, she speculated, the brat not might have the affections of the girl he wants, but I can see a keeper right here. Trying to finish her duties, Tsunade cleared her throat and said, as much as I'd like to continue chatting, we have other patients to see, don't we, Naruto? Nodding his head rapidly, he exclaimed, yeah, let's go see Kakashi-sensei now so you can heal him too. Bounding ahead, he stopped to turn around and yelled out, see you later, Hinata, before continuing on. Raising her hand slightly, Hinata squeaked out, BB bye Naruto-kun. Arriving at Kakashi's room, Naruto pushed open the door and entered with Tsunade and Shizune in tow. Seeing Kakashi on the bed, Naruto was brought back to memories of Wave and when Kakashi fainted from chakra exhaustion. Shaking off the feeling of deja vu, he gestured to Kakashi and told Tsunade, here we are. Please fix my sensei Lady Ba-chan, he finished with a grin. Tsunade shook her head and said, I don't know if I should be happy for the slight improvement or not. She then put on a thinking expression, then again, I could always get that girl to straighten you out again. Chuckling at his betrayed expression, she went to Kakashi's bedside to perform the mystic palm technique again. A few minutes passed in silence with Shizune patting Naruto's back to comfort him until Kakashi groaned. Kakashi opened his eye and looked around the room. When he did, he saw a lady with a lot of cleavage hanging over him and, further back, his student Naruto with another woman holding a pig. Blinking, he mumbled out, I must still be out of it. Although this is one of the weirdest genjutsus I've been in. Huffing, Naruto spoke up, you're not in a genjutsu, Kakashi-sensei. Me and Pervy Sage went and got Lady Ba-chan here to wake up you and Sasuke. Shaking off the grogginess, Kakashi noticed who the woman tending to him was. Lady Tsunade, he said, attempting a bow while still in bed. Thank you for healing me and my student. Waving him off, Tsunade told him, relax, I was just doing a favor for the brat here. Nodding, Kakashi turned to Naruto and said, you have my thanks, Naruto. It looks like your mission with Master Jiraiya went well. Sheepishly, Naruto muttered something that sounded like, you're welcome. Then he grinned and exclaimed, yeah, the mission was amazing. We managed to beat Orochimaru and Kabuto and bring Lady Ba-chan back here to be the 5th Hokage. If it was possible, his grin grew even wider and he continued, Pervy Sage even taught me an awesome new jutsu. Head spinning at the revelations but seeing Tsunade nod her head, Kakashi settled for an eye smile and asked, oh, and what was this awesome new jutsu you learned? Pumping his fist into the air, he exclaimed, it's a super cool ranked jutsu called the Rasengan. Kakashi's mouth gaped open and he thought, the Rasengan. Naruto learned the 4th Hokage's original jutsu. And learned it only a month, seeing as how that was when he left for his mission. Grin widening at seeing Naruto go on about how cool the Rasengan is and how he struck Kabuto with it, he thought, Naruto, you really are your parents' son. I smiling and interrupting Naruto in the middle of his speech, Kakashi asked, so can I see you make the Rasengan? Naruto looked over at Tsunade who nodded and said, it's fine, just don't hit anything with it and dissipate it when you're done. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto said, okay, I'll show you, Kakashi-sensei, but I made a shortcut to performing the jutsu. Making a shadow clone, Naruto then held his hand out and the shadow clone started to compress and rotate chakra. After a second, a Rasengan was formed in the original Naruto's hand. Looking to Kakashi, Naruto smiled and then held the Rasengan out to show him. Nodding, Kakashi smiled and told him, good job, Naruto. I'm proud of you. Blushing, Naruto said a quiet, thank you, and released the shadow clone and Rasengan. Kakashi motioned for Naruto to take a seat and when he did, Kakashi asked, so you use a shadow clone to assist you for the jutsu. The clone looks like it is rotating your chakra with both hands while both you and the clone are compressing the chakra at the same time. It's a very out-of-the-box solution but just what I'd expect from you. Naruto nodded excitedly and replied, wow Kakashi-sensei, you got all that from just one look. Calming down he continued, I've been trying to do it one-handed like Pervy Sage and Lady Ba-chan told me but I can't seem to get it. I did manage to bring the time that it takes to form down to about a second though. Thinking for a moment, Kakashi told him, I see. Well, I might be able to help you with some advice. First, you shouldn't try to go straight into forming it one-handed right away. Focus on getting the rotation done by yourself first so that your shadow clone only has to use one hand to help you with the compression. Pausing to see that Naruto understood, he continued, after that you can focus on doing the compression by yourself and you shouldn't have to use a shadow clone. If you still need to, you can practice doing it faster when you finish, but after having completed all these steps you should be much quicker at molding the chakra anyway. Naruto nodded and exclaimed, thank you Kakashi-sensei, this helps a lot. Tilting his head in confusion he asked, how do you know so much about the Rasengan? Kakashi smiled and said, because I know how to use it of course. Seeing Naruto's stunned look he elaborated, Minato-sensei taught it to me. Blinking in confusion, Naruto asked, who is Minato? Hearing a slap, he looked back to see Tsunade had face-palmed and Shizune had a deadpan expression on. Meanwhile, Kakashi just chuckled and answered, he was my sensei, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. Naruto jumped out of his chair and yelled, what? The fourth was your sensei? Before he could speak anymore, Tsunade sent him crashing to the ground with a fist to the head. Admonishing him, she said, be quiet, brat. This is still a hospital. Getting up and dusting himself off, Naruto muttered a quick apology. Kakashi just sat with a smile and said, I never told you about him being my sensei. Shaking his head, Naruto answered, no, I would remember something like that. With an aloof look on his face, Kakashi replied, must have slipped my mind. Seeing their deadpan looks, he tried to divert the conversation, anyway, this means I can help you with the Rasengan. Also, after I get out of here I have some other training ideas that you might like. Grateful, Naruto smiled and said, thank you, Kakashi-sensei. I really appreciate it. Interrupting, Tsunade spoke up, alright brat, it's time to go. We still have one more stop to make. Naruto nodded and said, that's right, we still have to go see Bushy Brows. Turning to the door he told Kakashi, okay Kakashi-sensei, I'll see you later for that special training. With an eye smile Kakashi answered, see you later Naruto. Walking down the hospital hall, Naruto was about to open the door to Rock Lee's room before Tsunade stopped him. When she caught up to him she spoke to him in a stern voice, Naruto, it's rude to keep barging into everyone's room like you have. You're supposed to knock beforehand. Naruto had a look of understanding before saying, oh yeah, right. He then proceeded to knock on the door before slinging it open and yelling, hey, Bushy Brows. Tsunade deadpanned before muttering, I guess I should have mentioned he has to wait for them to invite him in as well. Straightening up, she went inside the room where Naruto was talking wildly to Lee, who was laying on the bed listening intently. Naruto then gestured to Tsunade before saying, this is Lady Ba-chan. She's the amazing healer me and Pervy Sage went to get to heal you and the others. Lee looked over to Tsunade and greeted her warmly, greetings Lady Ba-chan. I thank you for coming to have a look at me and get me back into fighting health. Straining to keep a straight face, Tsunade greeted him back, hello Rock Lee, but my name is actually Tsunade Senju. Seeing that he understood she continued, anyway, due to the extensive injuries you've received I can't actually heal you right now. Rather I'm going to perform a diagnostic jutsu to survey the damage done and what we need to do moving forward. Lee nodded and then Tsunade turned to Naruto saying, this is going to take a while so you can go ahead and take the rest of the day off. Naruto grinned and replied, alright Lady Ba-chan, you got it. I haven't had Ichiraku ramen in a month so I'm going there straight away. Starting to leave he told Lee, By bushy brows, you're in great hands. Let's have a spar when you get out. Nodding excitedly, Lee replied, Yes, Naruto, I will have to fight you with the full power of my replenished youth when I recover. Waving, Naruto left and started rushing down the hall. Turning a corner, he stopped before he ran straight into a man wearing a green spandex suit. Recognizing him, he greeted, Hi, bushy brows sensei. Going around him, Naruto started running off again, shouting back, Sorry, can't talk, I have to eat the food of the gods. Giving Naruto a thumbs up with a wide grin showing shining teeth, Guy bellowed out, Yosh Naruto. Keep embracing the flames of your youth. When Naruto disappeared around the corner, Guy continued on to Lee's room, wide grin still on his face. Tsunade was in the process of examining Lee when she heard a knock on the door. Inviting them in, she saw that it was Might Guy. Ah, Lady Tsunade, he said. I've heard you were back in the village. Looking at her examining Lee, he inquired, So are you here to check on the condition of my most youthful student? Not pausing her work, Tsunade nodded, I'm getting a basic diagnostic done so I can know his condition in greater detail. Grinning but not bothering her work, Guy sat down in the chair to wait for her to finish. After 20 minutes had passed, Tsunade sighed and stood up saying, Well, I've checked everything I can for now. I'll have to get a Hyuga clan member to check for sure, but I believe he has bone fragments stuck throughout his arms and legs, not to mention the muscle and tendon strains from opening the inner gates. Fixing Guy with a harsh stare, she asked, Why in the world did you teach him such a forbidden technique? Guy leveled her with a determined look and answered, I would do anything to help Lee achieve his dream of being a splendid shinobi. Shaking her head, Tsunade replied, He won't be able to be a shinobi at all anymore with this kind of damage. Hearing both Lee and Guy gasp, she continued, It will be almost impossible to remove all the bone fragments while repairing your body and keeping you alive. Looking up at her with tears in his eyes, Lee stammered, but being a splendid shinobi is everything to me. Please, Lady Tsunade, there must be a way. Nodding his head fiercely, Guy agreed, Yes, Lady Tsunade, surely there must be some medical procedure that can help Lee. Exasperated, Tsunade pinched her nose and exclaimed, I'm not a miracle worker. Quieting down, she explained, Look, the only procedure that might work has a 50% chance of survival at best. Seeing their defeated faces, she told Lee, Listen, you have to ask yourself if your dream of being a shinobi is worth dying over. I can perform a much safer surgery to heal you to almost 100% so you can live a full life with a much easier career. Not getting an answer from either of them, she got up and started to leave, saying, Just think it over and decide what you really need to do for yourself. She then left the room, closing the door behind her. Leaving the hospital and heading towards the Hokage Tower, Tsunade felt more tired with every step. Walking through the doors, she muttered, Maybe I can finally sit down and have some sake. When she got to the entrance of the Hokage's office, she paused and thought, Right, this is my office now. Shrugging it off, she entered after ordering Shizune to go find her some sake. Looking around the room, she saw she wasn't alone, however. Danzo, Homura and Kaharu were sitting in chairs around the office while Jiraiya was leaning against the window. With the door opening, all of them turned their heads toward her, giving her expectant looks. She walked past them to the Hokage's seat and sat down, mumbling, Of course it wouldn't be that simple. When she finished settling in, Kaharu spoke up, Lady Tsunade, it is good to see you again. I hope your time out of the village has given you a new appreciation for your return here as Hokage. Raising an eyebrow at what she was insinuating but not feeling like arguing, she replied, Yes, I hope to lead this village to the ideal that my grandfather, the first Hokage, envisioned for us. Interlocking her hands and putting them on the desk, she asked, However, why are you all here right now? I was under the impression I wouldn't be starting my Hokage duties until tomorrow. Taking over, Homura said, While it is true that you officially begin tomorrow, we have an urgent document you must look over and approve before any of that. Blinking, Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, who had a defeated look on his face, and Danzo, who was looking smug. she knew it wouldn't be anything she liked. Getting the papers he was looking for, he handed them to Tsunade, who took them with a sigh. She started to read, flipping through pages faster and getting progressively angrier. When she finally finished, she threw the papers back on the table and yelled, "What is the meaning of this?" Danzo didn't flinch and replied, "It's the conditions for the surrender of Suna. It's Lady Hokage or Lady Fifth for you, Danzo," Tsunade said with a stern glare. Frustrated, Danzo spat out, "Of course, Lady Hokage." Continuing on, he said, "These are the terms that the council has agreed upon to seek reparations from Suna." "I know that," Tsunade shouted. "What I want to know is why you went behind my back for this deal and why I should take that kind of insubordination." Danzo shook his head and answered, "We didn't go behind your back, you aren't even in office yet." Seeing Tsunade's frustrated look, he had to suppress a smirk before he said, "You are free to deny it, of course, but this has the unanimous support of the council. Rejecting it would put you on the bad side of the council at the start of your reign, not to mention you would have to come up with another arrangement that would benefit the village more than this one." Tsunade turned to Jiraiya hoping to get some help. She was disappointed when he shook his head. "I've already tried to think of another way out and this is the best option we've got." Offering her an apologetic look, he saw her slowly nod her head. She asked him, "So there's nothing we can do?" When she said that, Jiraiya grew a slight grin and replied, "Well, we can't stop the marriage, but we can help out Naruto with some of the things he needs for it to work." Understanding what he was saying, Tsunade turned to the advisors and grinned, saying, "That's right, Temari will be an important guest here and she shouldn't have to stay in a hotel room for an indefinite amount of time." Seeing their quickly falling grins, she continued, "Not to mention the living conditions her future husband is living in. What kind of message would it send to Suna if we kept their choice of groom living in his rundown apartment?" Gritting their teeth, they asked, "What do you propose we do then?" Jiraiya interjected, saying, "We should build them a house, of course. It should be pretty big considering the size of the family you're wanting them to grow." Grin widening, he said, "In fact, it should be built near the old Namikaze compound since it will eventually be inhabited by their family." Looking to Tsunade, she nodded and said, "That sounds agreeable. We can have them live in the house now and have the option of the compound once it is fixed up later. That area of the village also has extra space where we can build the Uzumaki compound when we need to as well. The fact that it is close to the Hyuga compound is just a bonus." Trying to argue with the points, Kaharu brought up, "Are you sure we should have them living together? After all, isn't this arrangement supposed to be kept secret from the public?" Waving the concern off, Tsunade replied, "We can always just make up an excuse that Naruto is watching over Temari. Plus, that part of the village doesn't get much traffic from civilians anyway, and it's not as if they have to shout out their living arrangements to everyone." Reluctant to give in due to how much money it would cost, but knowing they were defeated, Homura sighed and said, "Very well, we will start arranging it right away." Nodding, Tsunade signed the papers and gave them to the advisors to send to Suna. As the advisors was leaving, Jiraiya called out to them, "And get Tenzo to help work on the building. We need to have it finished as soon as possible." With a slight nod, they left the room. Satisfied that everything went the way he wanted, Danzo stood up to leave and said, "Good day, Lady Hokage." Gritting her teeth, Tsunade spoke, "Goodbye, Danzo." As soon as he left, Tsunade slumped back into her chair. After a moment she spoke, "I'm not even Hokage yet and I've already failed him." Jiraiya shook his head and argued, "You didn't fail him, Haim." Seeing her disbelieving look, he continued, "You were put in a position with no possible way to win. All you could really do was find any advantage you could." Sighing, she put her head in her hands and said, "I know that. I just wanted Naruto to be able to live a normal life. Not have to get stuck in an arranged marriage and be used for political plots." "I understand what you mean, but Naruto was never going to have a normal life," Jiraiya countered. Seeing her glare, he held his hands up and explained, he gave that up as soon as Minato sealed the Kyuubi inside him. Not to mention he would always be used to restore both the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans. When she appeared to slump even more, he reminded her, even if it can't be normal, it can still be a happy life. We can find whatever advantage we need to help him fulfill his dreams. Plus, one of his dreams is already coming true in having someone to come home to. Seeing Tsunade perk up some, he continued, even if it might not be ideal now, he could always come to love both those girls and have their love in return. At this, Tsunade's face broke into a small smile, remembering the Hyuga girl she met earlier at the hospital and her reactions to Naruto. This might work out better than I thought, Tsunade thought. With Tsunade's mood lifted, Jiraiya tried to divert her attention. Not to mention the obvious benefits of marrying two beautiful girls. Why? Just imagine all the possibilities. Ignoring the rising temper of Tsunade, he kept speaking. Do you think they would let me observe them for my research? Just think of all the ideas I could get from watching their kinky threewa. He never finished his sentence because Tsunade had hit him with a chakra-enhanced punch, launching him out the window and into the distance. Grumbling, Tsunade sat down and said, "That pervert never learns." Rubbing her forehead, she sighed, "Not even in office yet, and that brat is already giving me problems." Slamming her hands down on the table, she yelled out, "And where is Shizune with my sake?" Meanwhile, Shizune was walking back to the Hokage Tower after finally finding the right kind of sake Tsunade liked when a shiver went down her back. Gulping, she entered the tower, having a bad feeling about meeting Tsunade. The sun had begun to rose over the wide desert in the land of wind. As the light began to grow brighter, people in Suna began to leave their houses and start their day. For most, it would be just another day. However, for a few, today would be the day everything changed. The Kazekage mansion was located just a short walk from the Kazekage Tower. This mansion used to be home to a family of 4, but with the death of the Kazekage, now only his children lived there. In one of the bedrooms laid a 15-year-old girl with slightly long blonde hair. She was laying on her bed snoozing with a small smile on her face. That smile stopped when the sun began to hit her face and she opened her eyes with a groan. Taking a few minutes, she began to slowly get up. Walking over to her bathroom, she began her morning routine. After several minutes, she exited with her hair up in her normal 4-ponytail style. Afterwards, she left her room and began to walk downstairs to the kitchen. Knowing it was her turn to cook, she thought about what she wanted to eat. Pancakes sound pretty good, she thought. After that, she grimaced. Anything has to be better than whatever it was Kankuro made yesterday. I still don't know how he was able to both burn and undercook something at the same time. He wouldn't even say what it was supposed to be. After deciding on pancakes, she gathered all the ingredients and began to mix them. She then started cooking them and let her mind wander. Meanwhile, Kankuro had started to smell the pancakes from his bedroom and, getting hungry, started to head towards the kitchen. Upon entering and noticing Temari, he threw his hands over his eyes and yelled, "Ga sis. I don't want to see that." Temari was brought out of her thoughts and looked down at herself wearing a large black shirt and some purple simple panties. Getting angry, Temari shouted back, "Oh, calm down, you big wuss. It's no big deal. Besides, it's not like you'll ever get to see a woman like this anyway." Feeling indignant, Kankuro argued, "Hey, that's not true. I'm plenty popular with the ladies." Smirking, Temari countered, "Oh yeah, name one girl that likes you." Seeing him open his mouth, she interrupted, "And it can't be one of your puppets either." Frustrated, Kankuro was about to answer until he heard light footsteps coming near him. Freezing, he turned and saw Gaara enter into the kitchen. When Gaara entered, he looked to Temari and Kankuro and gave a small smile. "Good morning, sister, brother," he said. Kankuro, still not used to Gaara smiling or being nice, stammered out, "GG, good morning, Gaara." Temari, however, gave a much softer smile and replied, "Good morning, Gaara. Go ahead and take a seat, the pancakes are almost done. Nodding, Gaara took his seat while Kankuro quietly sat down in the opposite chair so Temari would have to sit between them. After a minute, Temari brought the pancakes and plates to the table and then took a seat herself. Drooling, Kankuro was about to grab a plateful of pancakes until Temari slapped his hand saying, "Stop that. Let Gaara go first." Pouting, Kankuro let Gaara get his share. Afterwards he started to reach for them again until Temari slapped his hand again and grabbed her own share without saying anything. Kankuro grumbled and grabbed the last of the pancakes mumbling, "Why do I have to go last?" Temari heard him and answered, "Because you tried to kill us with your slop of a breakfast yesterday. Plus you would probably take most of the pancakes and wouldn't leave any for me or Gaara." Not knowing when to quit, Kankuro replied, "Well, maybe I should take most of them. Looking at the stack you have, it won't be long until you get fat." As soon as the words left his mouth he found himself on the floor, courtesy of a fist to the head from Temari. Angrily she shouted, "Excuse me. I am extremely healthy from my shinobi lifestyle. I have the perfect figure any man would drool over." Kankuro laughed and said, "Oh yeah, then why don't you ever have any dates or boyfriends?" Temari was about to smack him again when they both heard a soft snort. Looking over to Gaara, they saw he was looking away slightly with a small smile. Straightening up, they both gave a soft smile and began eating in peace. When they were almost done, Kankuro spoke, "Oh yeah, Temari, your birthday is in about a week. What are you wanting to do?" Shrugging, Temari replied, "I don't really care too much. I'm fine with just doing some training in the morning and having a meal together later." Before Kankuro could reply, Gaara spoke up, "Is there anything you would want, sister?" Shocked at hearing him ask, Temari shook her head with some tears in her eyes. Then grabbing both of them into a hug she answered with a wide grin, "No, I've got everything I need right here." Letting them go she calmed down, and when they all finished eating she stood up and told them to bring their dishes to the sink. While they were in the process of washing them there was a knock at the door. Temari turned to them and said, "Go answer the door, Kankuro. I'm going to go put some clothes on." With that she left while Kankuro and Gaara went to answer the door. Opening the door, they saw it was Baki who knocked. "Baki-sensei, what brings you by?" Kankuro asked. "I have some things to discuss with you all," he answered. Looking around he asked, "Is Temari here?" Kankuro nodded and said, "Yes, she's upstairs getting ready. Come on in while you wait." Agreeing, Baki walked in and they went to the living room to take a seat and wait on Temari. While they were waiting, Baki noticed how calm Gaara seemed and hoped this news would seem him back into his old habits. After a few minutes Temari walked down and, noticing him, greeted, "Baki-sensei. Good morning." He nodded and replied, "Good morning, Temari." Taking her seat she asked him, "What did you need to see us for today?" At this, Baki started wringing his hands trying to find the best way to tell them. "I'm not sure if I'm more scared of Temari's or Gaara's reaction," he thought. Taking a breath he started, "So you know how we surrendered to Konoha after failing the invasion and finding we were betrayed by Orochimaru." Grimacing, all three of them nodded their heads. "So Suna and Konoha have been negotiating on a truce, and since we lost we are having to pay the majority of the reparations," Baki said. Seeing they understood he continued, "The council came to a decision of what we can do and we just got back word this morning that Konoha approved the terms." Seeing that Baki was having a hard time trying to say what he needed, the three siblings had a sinking feeling they weren't going to like it. Sighing, Baki finally said, "The deal was a marriage contract, and you are the bride, Temari." Silence. No one said a word trying to process the words he said. Then all of a sudden Temari jumped up and exploded, "What? What do you mean I'm the bride?" Trying to placate her and her siblings, Gaara especially seeing some sand start to slip out of his gourd, Baki replied, "We had to show Konoha that we were serious about atoning for our mistake." The council came to a unanimous decision that a marriage contract was the best idea and you were chosen because you are one of our best kunoichi and you had the blood of a Kage. Deflating a little, Temari argued, so that's it. I'm shipped off to be a sacrifice for the village after everything I've done. Looking apologetic, Baki said, I'm sorry Temari but this was our only path to peace. If I saw any other option I would take it. This will secure our alliance for a long time and will help bring our village to new heights. Temari slunk back into her chair and sat there unmoving, trying to keep the tears at bay. None of the others said anything, unable to find any words that would comfort her. After a couple of minutes she asked, do you at least know who my husband is to be? At this Baki reluctantly nodded and said, yes, it was already decided and he has the full approval of the council. When he said this Temari started to think who it could be. They'll most likely give me to one of the clan heirs. I don't even want to think about it being someone way out of my age range. Thinking back on the Chunin exams she drew up a mental list. Sasuke Uchiha is the most likely choice. I don't know much about him besides that he's the last of his clan and is a supposed prodigy. He doesn't look bad I suppose but from what I saw he seemed extremely gloomy and whatever that black chakra was gives me the creeps. Moving on to her next candidate she thought, Neji Hyuga is a possibility as well. He's supposed to be the most talented Hyuga in ages. However, I did not like his fixation on fate and how cruelly he beat down his own cousin in the preliminaries. He got what was coming to him when that kid won against him in the finals. Plus, I'm not sure if he could be chosen considering he's a branch member for their clan. That Nara brat could be chosen, she thought with a grimace. I still haven't forgiven him for basically beating me and then just given up. Otherwise, he doesn't seem anything special besides his clearly brilliant strategic mind. He's super lazy though and I definitely don't like people who just give up at the first sign of trouble. Finishing up she thought, that was everyone who stood out to me. I suppose they could pick someone else like the heirs of the Akamichi, Inuzuka, or Aburame clans, but I know next to nothing about any of them. Hearing Baki clear his throat, she snapped out of her thoughts and gave him her full attention. Seeing that she was listening, he said, they have chosen Naruto Uzumaki, the last of known member of the Uzumaki clan. Silence once more reigned in the house. Baki saw all three of their faces morph into different expressions. Temari looked confused and even a little scared. Kankuro seemed to be torn between disbelief and wanting to laugh. However, Gaara's expression scared him the most. He appeared calm and even had a small smile on his face. Temari tried to sort through the thoughts in her mind. They chose Naruto. And it was unanimous. Why? He seemed like such a loudmouth and nothing special. Although he did manage to beat Neji, which was pretty impressive. Plus, how could I forget his fight with Gaara? Summoning the boss toad to fight him and win even when Gaara transformed into the Ikibi was insane. Remembering something else, he had some kind of special chakra at some points too, didn't he? I don't know what it was, but it was scary and somehow even darker than Gaara's. Also, didn't Baki say he was the last of his clan? I didn't even know there was an Uzumaki clan. Naruto just seems like a walking contradiction to me. Before she could get lost in her thoughts anymore, Kankuro bursted out laughing. Unable to hold it in anymore, he exclaimed, ha ha ha, they chose the shrimp for the groom. What were they thinking? Turning towards Temari, he tried to contain his laughter. I really am sorry for you, Temari, but you have to admit it is funny. We're giving away our strongest kunoichi to the wimpiest guy they have. Temari started getting angry and was about to hit him when Gaara's voice shocked everyone. I approve, he said. Everyone turned to Gaara, stunned that he would say that. After a moment Temari asked, what do you mean you approve, Gaara? Exactly what I said, he answered. Naruto Uzumaki is the best choice for you. Temari opened and closed her mouth a few times before stammering out, BB, but he beat you, Gaara. Aren't you mad about that? Inside her head she also thought, plus if he was strong enough to defeat Gaara, who knows what he might do to me. Shaking his head, He denied, "No, it is precisely because he beat me that I approve. Through his actions I was able to see a better way to live and change to follow his example." Sensing Temari's unsaid worries, he added, "Do not worry, sister, he will not harm you. Rather, he will fight for you and protect you from harm with all his being because you will become precious to him. I know this because he not only told it to me with his words but also his actions. When we fought, he gave everything he had to save everyone in his village that was precious to him. Not only that, but he even gave his all to save me, his enemy." Shocked at his passionate defense of Naruto, Temari couldn't help but to throw her arms around Gaara and hug him. With tears gathering in the corners of her eyes, she cried out, Thank you, Gaara." Calming down, Temari let go of Gaara and wiped the tears from her eyes. Seeing her better, Baki sighed but spoke up, "I'm sorry, Temari, but there's a little more you need to know." Turning to him, fearful of what he might say, she gave a nervous nod. Baki continued, "Even though they agreed to our proposition, Konoha added an extra clause to the contract. It states that even though you will be married to Naruto Uzumaki, he will be taking another wife from Konoha." Shocked and frustrated, she exclaimed, "What? Why are they doing this? Are they just trying to make me a trophy wife or something?" Shaking his head, Baki denied, "No, that is not why they are doing it. They are actually still allowing you to be a kunoichi, even if it's under their banner, so you're not just a trophy wife to them." At this, Temari let out a soft sigh of relief that she would be able to at least keep her pride as a shinobi. "As for the reasoning of a second wife, I have a few theories." Baki folded his hands before saying, "First, I'm sure they want someone to keep him tied to Konoha since he has no family there. After all, they wouldn't want all his closest family to have deep ties to Suna even if we are allies again." Feeling a slight pang at being reminded Naruto had no family, Temari nodded. Seeing she understood, Baki continued, "The other reason ties into what I said before about him being the last Uzumaki. I'm sure they want to use him to rebuild his clan and probably wish to use another wife to speed the process up. After all, having too many children would put a bigger strain on you." Slightly uneasy at remembering what her other duties would require, she gave a shaky nod. Before she could ask anything else, Kankuro interrupted, "But we've never even heard of the Uzumaki clan. Why are they such a big deal?" Baki nodded and said, "It somewhat makes sense why you wouldn't. They were almost completely wiped out years ago with their village of Uzushiogakure being destroyed. They were greatly feared for their massive chakra capacities and brilliant knowledge of Fuinjutsu that the nations of Iwa, Kiri, and Kumo all banded together to crush them." Seeing the shocked look on their faces, he continued, "They were truly formidable, and they had strong ties to Konoha. The first Hokage was married to an Uzumaki, and the spiral on the Konoha uniforms is actually an homage to Uzu. We were actually surprised to find that Naruto truly was an Uzumaki. We thought he might just have the name as a way to honor the lost clan. He doesn't have their trademarked red hair nor the Fuinjutsu ability they were known for." Letting all his words sink in and how special this union with Konoha could become, he finished, "There is also one or two more reasons Konoha might have chosen a second bride, but they are classified for now and you must have Konoha tell you their reasoning." Trying to control her breathing, Temari willed herself to calm down. When she finally did, she asked, "Do you know who they have chosen as the second bride?" Nodding, Baki said, "They chose the Hyuga clan heiress, Hinata Hyuga. She's the one who was beat badly by her own cousin," she thought, lowering her head. Although she at least seemed fairly capable and likely only lost because she fought a prodigy who was also 1 year her senior. It's a lot better than those pink and blonde fangirls that could barely manage to tie with each other. I don't know how I would live with either of them without ripping my hair out. I am surprised they chose to give up the heiress of the most prestigious clan in Konoha though." Raising her head, Temari reluctantly asked Baki, "Is that everything?" "Yes, that should be it," he answered. There are some basic details to go over, such as what you will be allowed to do and your status in both villages, but that can be gone over in Konoha. Sighing, Temari nodded and asked, "When are we leaving?" "In 3 days," he replied. "It will also take 3 days to travel to Konoha. In the meantime, get all your affairs in order before we leave." With a softer tone he said, "I have also gotten permission for us to bring Kankuro and Gaara on the trip." With a slight smile, Temari answered, "Okay, Baki-sensei." With his duty done, Baki muttered a quick goodbye and left the mansion so the siblings could come to terms with everything. As he was closing the door, he heard a strangled sob come from inside and hung his head, continuing on his way. While Temari was preparing for what was to come, her future husband was currently snoozing away, sprawled all over his small bed. Restless, he kept rolling in place until he rolled too far and fell off onto the floor. Letting out a loud, "Ouch," he pulled himself up. Seeing that it was morning, he went to the bathroom. After he finished, he headed to the kitchen to prepare his breakfast, nightcap still on his head. In his kitchen, he got out one of his packs of instant ramen. Since that was all he knew how to make, he started preparing the stove for it and put it on. Watching it cook, he began to chant, "Ramen. Ramen. Ramen." After 3 minutes it was done and he put it in a bowl and took it to his table. Taking the first bite, he exclaimed, "Hot. Hot. Hot." Running to the fridge, he got out some milk to cool off his tongue and let out a big sigh of relief when it did. Taking the milk with him, he started eating his ramen again and hummed happily that it was cool enough. Finishing up his meal, he started taking the plate to the sink when he heard a knock on his door. Setting down the plate, he walked to open the door and saw an Anbu with a cat mask waiting. "Naruto Uzumaki, you are to report the Hokage's office immediately," said the Anbu. Without waiting for a reply, they shunshined away. Squinting his eyes, Naruto asked himself, "Wonder what Lady Ba-chan wants." Shaking his head, he went to his bedroom to throw his orange jumpsuit on. After he was dressed, he headed to his door and turned off the lights. "Be back later," he said to the empty apartment. Ignoring the pang in his heart, he took off towards the Hokage Tower. Arriving at the tower, he entered and told the secretary he was summoned by the Hokage. She glared lightly at him but let him through. When he got to the office, he knocked before throwing the door open. Entering in, he saw Tsunade sitting down in her chair and Jiraiya leaning against the wall. Grinning, he exclaimed, "Morning, Lady Ba-chan." "Morning, pervy sage." Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and turned to Tsunade, "Lady Ba-chan." Tsunade sighed and replied, "It's a work in progress." Addressing Naruto, she said, "Next lesson, after you knock, wait until the person inside tells you to come in before you do." "And what did I say about lowering your voice?" Naruto deflated a bit but still saluted and said quieter, "Understood, Lady Ba-chan." After that he relaxed and asked, "So what did you need me for? Is it a mission? 'Cause that would be cool, but I just got back and Sasuke and Kakashi aren't out of the hospital yet." Shaking her head, "No, it's not a mission. Actually, your team will not be doing missions for a little while because of a few reasons. However, Kakashi is going to be released later today, so maybe you and him can get started on that training he mentioned tomorrow." Seeing Naruto nod and grin at the thought of training, she chuckled. Turning serious again, she folded her hands together and spoke, "Me and Jiraiya actually have several things to tell you today." With that, she activated the silencing seals on her office. Knowing it must be serious if she needed to do that, Naruto gulped and stammered, What is it?" Sighing, Tsunade replied, "The first thing we need to tell you is about your parents." With that, a shock was sent through Naruto's body. Standing straight up, he stuttered, My parents. What about them? Did you know them?" Raising her hand up, Tsunade interjected, "Yes, we both knew your parents. Although Jiraiya knew your father a lot better than your mother, and I really only knew them in passing." Seeing she had Naruto's full attention, she continued, "We'll talk about your mother first. She was a fiery redhead by the name of Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto looked down and muttered, Kushina. Finally I have her name, he thought. Jiraiya chuckled and Naruto looked at him. She was a real firecracker, that one, he said. She was always the type to answer with her fists instead of words. She was a terror on the battlefield as well. With fierce kenjutsu, unparalleled fuinjutsu, and massive chakra reserves, she became known as the Red Death. However, your father said that she had a tender side, although I rarely got to see it. Smiling softly, he finished, your personality reminds me of her a lot. With tears dripping down his face, Naruto grinned the widest he had in a long time and exclaimed, she sounds awesome. I'll do everything I can to make her proud. Tsunade beamed and said, I'm sure you already do, Naruto. When he had calmed down, she continued, now that you know your mother, it's time we tell you about your father. Before we do though, know that you won't be able to tell anyone the identity of either of your parents for now. Seeing Naruto's pouting look, she explained, both your parents had many enemies, your father especially, and if they knew they had a child, nothing would keep them from trying to seek revenge through you. When she saw Naruto nod and understand what she was saying, she motioned for Jiraiya to continue. Jiraiya sighed and began, your father was my student and greatest pupil. His name was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. As soon as those words left Jiraiya's mouth, Naruto froze. After a moment, Naruto stammered, the fourth Hokage. But that doesn't make any sense. If I was his son, why was I left alone for so long? Jiraiya tried to soothe him, it's true Naruto. Trust me, you look just like him and that's the problem. Running a hand through his hair, he sighed and said, you had several clan heads wanting to adopt you when they found out you were his son. Even I wanted to take you with me. However, we were all shut down because if word ever got out that a kid who looked just like Minato was adopted by a clan or me, it could have started a war. Crying at the fact that people wanted him, he asked, if I was his son, then why did he seal the Kyuubi in me? Why would he subject me to that torment? Did he just not love me? When he said that, Tsunade jumped up and started to hug him, whispering, of course, he loved you Naruto. Nodding, Jiraiya agreed, yes, both your parents were so excited to have you. They were constantly talking about how they couldn't wait. However, it was because you were his son that he had to seal it inside you. Naruto looked at him, obviously confused. Jiraiya answered him, I should probably start with that your mother was the container for the Kyuubi before you. Naruto gasped and Jiraiya nodded, continuing, it's true. She inherited the Kyuubi from Mito Uzumaki after she was unable to contain it any longer. See, since the Kyuubi is the strongest of the tailed beasts only and Uzumaki's immense chakra can hold them. Turning somber, he said, no one knows what happened the night you were born, but whatever it was, Minato wasn't able to seal the Kyuubi back into Kushina. Seeing it dawn on Naruto, Jiraiya said, this left you as the only available Uzumaki to contain the Kyuubi. I'm sure Minato didn't want to do that to you, but you were the only choice. After all, the Hokage has a duty to protect his village, even against his own wishes. However, he told Sensei you were to be seen as the hero that saved the village from the Kyuubi and had complete faith that one day you would be able to control his power. Naruto just continued to cry in Tsunade's arms. After several minutes, he calmed down and separated from her, sniffling while he did so. He wiped his face and put on a grin to say, I understand. I'll do my best to live up to their expectations and dreams. Punching his fist into his palm, he exclaimed, and one day I'll control the Kyuubi's power just like my father thought I could. Seeing Jiraiya and Tsunade's proud looks, he bowed and said, thank you both for telling me about them. It means the world to me. Jiraiya and Tsunade were both shocked that Naruto would bow to them. However, after a few minutes they just smiled and Jiraiya replied, don't mention it, kid. You deserve to know. Tsunade nodded but then became more serious. She said, Naruto, we called you here for several reasons. One of those was your parents, but there is something else we have to tell you. Naruto looked confused and asked, what? What else is there? Jiraiya answered for her, it's something that will shape your whole future. It was actually originally planned to tell you who your parents were on your 16th birthday, when you were hopefully strong enough to defend yourself. However, new circumstances have required us to inform you early, which is why we told you now. Naruto piped up, okay, but what happened? Tsunade sighed before saying, you know how Suna invaded. And they surrendered after finding out Orochimaru betrayed them and killed their Kage. Naruto nodded and asked, yes I know, but what does this have to do anything? I'm getting to that, Tsunade replied. Anyways, we have been seeking ways to make peace with Suna and reforge our alliance. After all, we don't want to have a war that would leave us both weak. Therefore, Suna had the idea to broker peace in a unique way, by using a betrothal contract. Naruto tilted his head and asked, what does that mean? Tsunade answered, it means that they are sending one of their kunoichi here to get married to someone from our village. This ensures that the villages have strong ties through the union of the ones chosen. And Suna has elected to send Temari Subaku as the bride. Thinking for a moment, Naruto exclaimed, I remember her. She's Gaara's sister. Grinning, Naruto continued, she was pretty cool. She had that huge fan and could use some powerful wind attacks. Tsunade nodded and said, that's right, which makes this deal so lucrative. She is not only a powerful kunoichi but also the eldest child of the last Kazekage. So she has valuable genetics and is a powerful political asset. Regretting what she was about to say, Tsunade continued, so with Temari as the bride, Suna requested a certain someone for the groom. And the one they chose, was you Naruto. What? Naruto exclaimed. What do you mean they chose me? I mean what do I even have? Why wouldn't they choose someone like Sasuke? Tsunade held up her hand to calm him down and replied, they specifically asked for you and no one else. As for the reason, we believe they chose you because they figured out who your father was. Naruto sputtered, but what would that matter? Oh. Tsunade nodded and said, yes, being the son of the fourth Hokage has many perks. Not only will it ensure access to his techniques but it also carries a lot of political weight. Plus Iwa is Suna's greatest threat and being tied to the son of the fourth Hokage would make Iwa think twice before attacking. Also since you and Temari are both children of Kages, any children you two have has the very high potential to be great. Seeing his face scrunch up at that, she continued, even if Suna didn't figure out your father, you still have a lot of positives. After all, more people are figuring out you're a true Uzumaki. This means they know about your high chakra reserves as well as the inherent fuinjutsu abilities of the Uzumaki. Both of which you can pass down to any children you have. So you are a very enticing option for any marriages. Naruto tried to argue, still, you're the Hokage so what you say goes, right? You can choose not to accept it. Tsunade shook her head and said, it's not that simple. It's true I could reject it but it would have major ramifications. Not only would it require a better solution to be found but it would put heavy strain on my relationship with both Suna and our own council. And since I just took office, that is a major risk since I don't have much sway with either yet. That is why this marriage is the best option for both of our villages. Seeing Naruto's downcast look, her face softened and she said, I'm sorry Naruto, but I have already accepted and the message has been sent. I'm sure they have gotten it by now. Temari is expected to be here sometime within the week. Looking towards the floor, Naruto softly muttered, I understand you were put in a hard position but it's not fair. I thought I would be able to choose who I get to love. Jiraiya sighed and replied, I know Naruto but life is never fair. You know that more than anyone. Besides even if you don't love each other now there is always the possibility of it happening later. After all, I'm not sure you would have ever gotten the affection you wanted from Sakura. To his surprise, Naruto nodded and said, I know. I've always had a feeling she would never like me but I thought I could change her mind. But yesterday even after I helped bring someone to heal Sasuke for her, she never even gave me a second look. Getting a little bit louder, he exclaimed, but that still doesn't make this right. Me and her don't even know each other, so how can we be expected to get married? And it's wrong to trap her with me. Putting a hand on his stomach, he whispered, after all, I'm sure she'll come to hate me after she learns what I really am. When I saw her, she was always scared of Gaara after all. When he said this, they both gave him a sympathetic look, and Tsunade spoke up, I know it's wrong, but we have to work with the hand we're dealt. When you become Hokage, you'll have to make difficult choices as well. She then grew a small smile and said, don't automatically assume she'll hate you for being a Jinchuriki either. You have a way of growing on people. Plus, you won't be getting married straight away either. It will be put off until you're at least 16, so you will have some time to get to know each other. Relieved that he wasn't getting married straight away, Naruto then asked, if we're waiting several years, then why am I being told all this now? Tsunade replied, we figured it was best to inform you so you could grow used to the idea. Also, even though you won't be getting married now, it would look bad on our alliance if you started attempting to date other girls than the contract allowed. So telling you would help you to not get attached to a woman you weren't marrying. Seeing that he understood, she continued, there is also the matter of Temari's living accommodations. Seeing as how she is going to be an important guest, it would not bode well if we put her up in some hotel. Therefore, we decided to give her a home. However, it would be somewhat pointless to have her live in a house for just a few years and then have to move somewhere else when you get married. So she will be living in the home we are building for the two of you, and you will be living with her. Huh, what do you mean I'm living with her? Naruto shouted. You heard me, Tsunade replied. You've been living in that lousy apartment for too long anyway. If Suna got word that you were in such lousy conditions, they could possibly raise a stink about it. You'll be living with the girl in the future anyway, so you might as well learn now. Tsunade then got a smirk on her face. Besides, based on the reports I saw from the Chunin exams, Temari seemed to be a pretty tough kunoichi. So, I'm sure I could trust her to straighten you out if you don't act right. Naruto gulped and paled when she said that, imagining her big fan she wielded and what kind of damage it might could do. Seeing this, Jiraiya laughed, ha ha, it won't be all bad, kid. After all, it will just be the two of you living there to start. Jiraiya's grin widened and he said, just imagine all the things you could get up to living with such a beautiful girl. Why, if I were you, I would. Tsunade punched Jiraiya, sending him to the ground. She huffed and told Naruto, don't listen to him, Naruto. He'll only put bad ideas in your head. Naruto nodded and replied, don't worry, Lady Ba-chan, I never want to turn out pervy like him. Good, Tsunade said. Anyway, your new house is going to be located by the Namikaze compound, but it's not done yet. It should be finished in another couple of days. Naruto tilted his head and asked, I didn't know there was even a Namikaze compound. It's fairly recent, Tsunade answered. See, whenever someone becomes Hokage, they have the option to start a clan if they're not already part of one. Your father had plans to start the Namikaze clan and revive the Uzumaki clan, but he wasn't able to do so before he died. Therefore his ambitions fall to you. Okay, but why can't we just live in the compound instead of building a house? Naruto asked. And are you expecting me to revive the Uzumaki clan too? Isn't that going to be a lot of work? You can't live in the compound yet because your lineage isn't known yet. We can waive off concerns of living in the house, saying we're planning on building more houses there, and yours is just the first one. But if you were actually living in the compound, it would raise a lot of questions. Besides, the compound would be far too big for just a few people anyway. It likely won't be used for a good many years until your family gets much larger and the space is needed. Tsunade waited a moment before continuing. As for the other matter, we are expecting you to revive the Uzumaki clan as well. There is a good amount of space on that side of the village. Besides the Namikaze clan compound, there is only the Hyuga clan compound. So there will be room to build a compound for the Uzumaki clan as well. That way both the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans can grow side by side. Naruto nodded and smiled. That makes sense. Plus we're close to the Hyugas. That means me and Hinata can be neighbors. That's pretty cool. As if sensing a moment he could turn perverted, Jiraiya had woken up and giggled, hee hee, you'll be close all right. The best kind of neighbors. Trying to ignore him, Tsunade added, you're right that it will be a lot of work though to revive two clans. That's why there is something else added to the contract that is supposed to help you. Jiraiya started giggling harder and said, oh, Naruto is going to be working hard all right. I'm sure he won't have any complaints about the kind of help that they're going to be providing. Having had enough, Tsunade got up out of her chair and punched Jiraiya into the wall hard, creating an imprint of him there. Satisfied with her work and returning to her seat, she wrote down a reminder to have her wall fixed. Naruto, who paled as soon as he saw what happened to Jiraiya, stood up straighter when Tsunade's gaze turned to him. Clearing her throat, she said, now where was I? Continuing as if nothing had happened, oh yes, reviving your clans. Anyway, when it was decided to have you revive both your clans, there was a few problems that came up. As I said, it would take a lot of time to revive both clans, and the high number of children could put a great strain on Temari. At this, Naruto turned a bright shade of red, just now realizing what reviving his clans would mean. Ignoring this, Tsunade said, there was also some members worried that having a wife from another village could cause your priorities to shift, and you would have greater ties to Suna than Konoha. When she said that, Naruto denied it. I wouldn't do that, Lady Ba-chan. I love this village and want to become its Hokage. Tsunade smiled but still said, I know that, Naruto, but they don't. Besides, if you do end up falling in love with Temari, she would be a high priority for you. She may become the most important thing to you, and that causes some worry for the council. Naruto remained silent, seeing what she meant. After all, even though he wanted to become Hokage, his dream of having a family to come home was even older. In many ways, it was more important to him, even if he didn't voice it often. Therefore, a clause was added to the marriage contract. They hoped it would be a solution to both of these problems. Taking a breath, Tsunade reluctantly told him, the condition was that you would take a second wife from Konoha to help rebuild your clans. 2 wives. You're marrying me off to 2 different girls. How is that even supposed to work? I thought you could only have 1 wife, Naruto shouted. Wincing from his loud voice, she answered, it is true that you're only supposed to marry 1 woman, but there are certain laws that bypass it. Such as the starting and reviving of clans. As for how it would work, each girl will be the matriarch of one of the clans. Through them, you will revive each clan. However, even though the girls will be helping lead different clans with you, it is best if you all get along. After all, it is better for the clans to coexist peacefully, since they will be living together in the village and protecting it together. Besides, you wouldn't want to be trapped in a marriage with 2 girls that hate each other to you. When you get married, you will all be living together and you want it to be a happy home. Feeling lightheaded from everything, Naruto asked, how do I even do this though? I know nothing about being a husband or starting a family. It would be hard enough with just 1 girl, but 2. I'm not sure if I can make this work. I think you can, Tsunade said firmly. Feeling sympathetic to him but knowing he needed encouragement, she continued, you might not know what it is to be a family, but you have greater love than anyone I know. Even after everything you've been through, you still try to smile and make people happy. I'm sure if anyone can make this work, it's you. Besides, you won't be alone. You'll have 2 wives who can help whenever you stumble, and you can do the same for them. That's what marriage is about. Still unsure but feeling slightly better, Naruto nodded. I can give you a few tips to help you though, Tsunade added. Seeing Naruto's pleading look, she said, you need to treat each girl like she's special. Be careful not to treat them like they're the same person, because they're not. They're both unique and they will like and dislike different things. Seeing Naruto nod his head rapidly, she continued, however, even though you won't treat them the same, do not treat one better than the other. It is asking for a disaster if you pick favorites. The other one will feel neglected and it could ruin the whole marriage. Which would be terrible since our whole alliance is based on your marriage. Feeling the pressure on him, Naruto gulped. Sensing that she was scaring him, Tsunade said, that is all the major advice you need for right now. The rest is standard for relationships, like being attentive and listening to your partner. You also need to show how much they matter to you, both through your words and actions. There are a few other things you should know, but they can wait until you're older and have use for them. Anything else, you and your partners can figure out as you live your lives together. Naruto bowed and said, "Thank you, Lady Tsunade, I appreciate your help." Feeling bashful, he added, I also appreciate your belief in me." Stunned that Naruto not only bowed to her again but also referred to her formally, she waved him off. "Don't worry about it. I want to not only have this marriage work but for you to be happy with it. So anytime you need help with it, don't hesitate to come to me." Naruto beamed. "Thank you." Thinking for a moment, he asked, "Also, do you know who is supposed to be my other wife?" Tsunade nodded and said, "Yes, the council has chosen Hinata Hyuga." Surprised, Naruto blurted out, "Hinata? Why her?" Raising an eyebrow, she replied, "There were several reasons, the main one being her high political standing as the Hyuga clan heiress. This would let her have the knowledge to help you establish your clans and provide counsel with you and Temari. Do you have a problem with her? You seemed to get along fine with her yesterday." "No, I don't have a problem with her," Naruto denied. "I like her a lot. She's always been very nice to me. I'm just not sure that she could like me enough to marry me. She always looks away whenever I look at her and is always so quiet around me. I'm also not sure if she would be healthy enough because she always has a red face around me and faints whenever I get too close." Tsunade sighed and shook her head, thinking, "I hope these girls can break that denseness from his head." She cleared her throat and answered, "Well, if that's all, I don't think you have to worry. I think she'll go along with the marriage just fine. I believe she likes you more than you know, she probably just has trouble expressing it because of her shyness." Naruto seemed to cheer up and asked, "Do you really think so?" Tsunade nodded and said, "Yes, I'm sure of it. As for your worries about her health, it should be fine. She had her latest physical not too long ago and she is very capable of bearing your children." She chuckled at causing his bright red face. After a moment she said, "Hinata will play her part as your wife just fine. It does please me to see you so worried about her well-being though." Naruto grinned and replied, "Well, I care about all my friends. They're my precious people and I would do anything for them." Seeing Tsunade's pleased look, he asked, "Does Hinata already know about this? I sent an Anbu to inform Hiyashi that I was telling you about the arrangement. So she did not know when you saw her yesterday, if that is what you are asking. However, she will likely be informed sometime today," she answered. "I understand, Lady Ba-chan. Is that everything?" Naruto asked. She nodded and said, "Yes, that is all. Remember, this is all confidential right now until your 16th birthday. So you can't tell anyone that doesn't know. However, you can discuss it with me, Jiraiya, the council members and your fiancés once Temari gets here and Hinata is informed. Also, I will be telling Kakashi of your status once he leaves the hospital, as he is your sensei and needs to know about this. Kurenai will be told as well due to being Hinata's sensei." "Okay, thank you, Lady Ba-chan," he replied. "May I be excused now?" "Yes, you may," she answered. As he started to leave, Tsunade interrupted, "Naruto, I would just like to say I'm sorry for not being able to do anything about this. I am proud of how you're taking it though, and I do believe this can make you happy in the long run." Naruto just grinned and nodded, leaving the room. Sighing, Tsunade slumped into her seat muttering, "I need some sake." Well, that went better than expected. Tsunade jumped hearing Jiraiya's voice, forgetting he was still here. Calming down, she said, "Yes, but I think he's hurting inside." He's always been good at hiding his pain from what I've seen. Jiraiya nodded. I agree. I think I know someone who could help. I'll get him to talk to Naruto. Good. Go ahead and do that, she replied. Seeing him leave, she deactivated the silencing seals and summoned an Anbu agent. Retrieve Shikamaru Nara for me. I have Chunin exam results I must relay, she told them. They nodded and disappeared to do their task. Seeing as she was alone, she muttered, time for the most important matter of the day. Taking a deep breath, she bellowed out, Shizune, get me some sake. She heard a crash in the next room and a hurried, yes ma'am, before relaxing into her seat. Across the village, at the Hyuga compound, two shinobi were locked in combat. Both were glaring at their opponent, one with white pupils and one with lavender. Each had their Byakugan active and were waiting for their opponent to make the next move. As if by some unspoken call, they leapt into action at the same time. 8 trigrams 64 palms. 8 trigrams 32 palms. With their respective stances, Neji and Hinata started attacking each other with their gentle fist taijutsu style. Using the tips of their fingers, they attacked tenketsu located in both the arms and body of their opponent, shutting them down. Seemingly deadlocked, they both continued to try to close as many tenketsu as they could. However, Hinata seemed to slow down and Neji smirked. Nice try, Lady Hinata, but you still cannot do the full 64 palms. Pressing his advantage, he attempted to strike Hinata after her jutsu ended. However, to his surprise, she twisted her body and he missed. Continuing on, he ended at the same result. Growing angrier, he started attacking faster. And so the dance continued with Neji striking out against Hinata and her contorting her body to dodge every attempt. Finally, at the 57th strike, Neji connected and, with Hinata's focus broken, he landed the rest of his blows. When he had finished, Hinata fell down onto the training mat exhausted. At that, Hiyashi, who had been viewing the match, cleared his throat and announced, that is enough. Looking at Neji, he said, you continue to excel in the gentle fist. However, be wary of your anger. It can make you act rashly just as much as it can hone your focus. Neji bowed and replied, yes, Lord Hiyashi. Turning to Hinata, Hiyashi said, you still need practice since you are unable to do the 64 palms. Hinata lowered her head ashamed at herself until Hiyashi's voice brought her out of her thoughts. However, you are improving as your 32 palms was flawless this time. I was also very intrigued by what you were attempting to do there at the end, trying to avoid Neji's attacks. Explain what this was to me. Nervous at being put on the spot, she bowed and answered, well, I knew I was unable to do S64 strikes. My body also seems to be poorly suited for the rigidness of the G gentle fist. So I've been trying to find a style that would suit my B body better and allow me to dodge hits while I work up to P performing the 64 palms. Cursing herself for stuttering, Hinata kept her bow while waiting for his reply. Noticing her stutter but not commenting on it, Hiyashi replied, very well. I approve of this experimental new style and will allow you to continue to improve it. It still needs work, but I can help you while we train in the future. You will still be expected to learn all the gentle fist techniques, however. Hinata just nodded, stunned that he approved and would allow her to follow her new style. Hiyashi turned and said, we are done for today. You are free to go, Neji, but meet me in my office, Hinata. With that, he walked off, leaving a confused Hinata in his wake. Noticing Neji approach, she shook it off and gave him a small smile. Neji bowed and said, you are improving rapidly, Lady Hinata. You will catch up to me in no time. Hinata shook her head and replied, no, I will never be able to catch up to you. And any improvement I show is thanks to you. Neji smiled and said, you are much too kind, Lady Hinata. I will continue to believe in you and let your progress speak for itself. Turning away, he said, I will see you for more training another time. Have a good day, Lady Hinata. Goodbye, Neji, she replied. He nodded and walked off, leaving her alone. Sighing, she gathered her courage and walked to her father's office, wondering what he could want. Arriving at the door to the office, she knocked and waited for him to allow entry. When she heard him say enter, she went inside. Have a seat, Hinata. We have some matters to discuss, Hiyashi said. Hinata bowed and then sat down in front of his desk. She fidgeted under his gaze but waited for him to explain why she was here. After a moment, Hiyashi spoke. I have called you here to discuss your place in the clan and your future role in it. At this, Hinata had a sinking feeling in her stomach but didn't say anything. As of now, Hanabi will be the clan heiress. She will be raised to someday lead the clan and be taught all the knowledge needed for that role. When he said this, Hinata lowered her head in shame. I expected this to someday happen, but it still hurts. Now I'll be branded and thrown away. But at least Hanabi will be safe from the seal, thought Hinata. However, his next words caught her attention. This isn't a punishment for you, Hinata. Her head shot up at that, shocked that it wasn't because she was a failure. I did say we would be continuing your training, didn't I? It just so happens that an opportunity has arisen for us, he said. Seeing her confusion, he continued, Hanabi has always been more suited to lead the clan, but I've put off declaring her the heiress due to not wanting to have you sealed. However, recently, matters have come to my attention that there is a role you can play better than anyone else and it will allow you to remain unsealed. Stunned that she would not be sealed, Hinata stuttered, what role is that, father? He folded his hands before explaining, as you know, Suna surrendered to us after their failed invasion. As a gesture of good faith, with the hopes of rekindling our previous alliance, they offered a marriage contract. They are sending the Kazekage's daughter, Temari, to marry a shinobi from our village to keep the peace. Hinata was confused at what this had to do with anything, but she nodded anyway. Knowing that she was following him, he continued, Suna made the choice for the groom and we agreed after some deliberation. He is the last heir to 2 clans, meaning he will be leading 2 clans in the future and will become very influential. Hinata started thinking, who could he be talking about? The only person that comes to mind is Sasuke, but as far as I'm aware he is only heir to the Uchiha clan. I don't know anybody else that would fit. Hiyashi cleared his throat, catching Hinata's attention. Seeing her listening, he said, anyway, the council had some concerns since he would be starting 2 clans. They were worried that Temari would have a great strain put on her trying to revive 2 different clans. There were also concerns that, by having a bride from another village, the groom could have his loyalties shifted towards Suna. He took a breath before continuing, therefore, the council came